Thank you everyone so much for joining. My name is Rio Goodwin Perez, and I use they, them pronouns. I am the new director of the Going Home Coalition. I have met most of you, but to those of you all who I have not met, thank you so much for joining our Going Home Coalition Town Hall. Today's January 21st, 2026. And it is our first Going Home Coalition meeting of the year. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited to be here. Before we get started, just some small housekeeping. This meeting is being recorded. While other folks are talking, please keep yourself muted. If you have something to share, we definitely encourage that. Just go ahead and raise your hand, or if you're on camera, you can raise your hand in space and we will call on you. The meeting recording and the notes are going to be sent out within the week. So you will get a link to a YouTube video. You will get meeting notes from today where we outline all of what we discuss. And just please be respectful of others. Jennifer has just dropped in the chat a link to some successful meeting strategies for those of you all who aren't super used to being in virtual spaces. You can take a look at those strategies just so you feel a little bit more comfortable with, joining a meeting and being respectful of everyone. So before we get started with our discussion, I want to talk about our new hosting format. So as you all know, in the past, we have always had a self-advocate host, and that is never going to change. We will always be working with a self-advocate whenever possible to lead these meetings because we think it's very, very important. But previously, we typically had a different self-advocate host for every meeting. So someone new would be joining every meeting and leading it. And in an attempt to provide some stability for our self-advocates, we are transitioning to having the same host for 2 months. And the host is going to lead instead of just a Going Home Coalition meeting or a Rev Up meeting. They're going to lead both for both of the months. So that means for example, we have April is our host, and April led the January Rev Up meeting, and now she is going to host our January Going Home Coalition meeting, and she'll do the same thing for February. So that means that you will at least be participating in 4 meetings total. And in addition to those 4 scheduled Going Home and Rev Up meetings, you will also be invited to participate in any extra activities or webinars or workshops that we lead. So, for example, April just helped host our legislative advocacy series, the first legislative advocacy series session. She also helped us host a webinar for aimed at parents with Illinois Lifespan, talking about voting for people with disabilities. So there's a lot of different opportunities to get involved. And like it says on the screen, each of those opportunities you get paid $50 per meeting. So if you just host our Going Home Coalition meetings and you don't have any other opportunities, that would be $200 total, with extra add-ons. So without further, before I go into introducing April, I want to invite those of you who are here, who are self-advocates, to fill out this hosting survey. We already have some folks in this meeting who have done so, and we're going to be reaching out to you guys very soon to discuss opportunities for engagement and hosting opportunities. But if there's anyone else in the room who has not filled out the survey, please do so. We want you to get paid. We want to, give you some opportunity for engagement and develop yourself as a self-advocate and as someone who leads presentations. So please, please fill this out because we really, really want to work with you. So without further ado, I get to introduce our wonderful host for tonight. Her name is April McLeese, and she uses she, her pronouns. And April transitioned through Shapiro Developmental Center and multiple Scylla homes. She overcame challenges with self-harm, defiance, and community reintegration. She moved into her current Scylla home in June 2023, and she told me that she's really enjoying it. She achieved her GED in under a year, and she got her dream job at Goodwill, which is amazing. She lives with supportive roommates and staff and is very active in her community. And April advocates for less restrictive Scylla homes for all. And something that April did not include in here is that she is also a very, very talented artist, and she makes a lot of different things. She just showed me yesterday some earrings that she made. She sews. She makes wreaths, lots of different materials that she uses. So now I am going to pass things over to April, and she's going to guide us through our meeting.
Hi, hello. Today's agenda includes the next I'm going to do words to know. And then after that it will be um goal setting practices and examples by Rio, discussion and by me, April, and what's coming up next for the Going Home Coalition Rev Up, and I will be doing that also. Next slide. Some words to know for this presentation are community town hall, an event to talk about problems happening in our community and lives. Coalition, a group of people and organizations working together to meet a goal, strategy, a careful plan. Campaign, a strategy used to make a difference in one's community. Next slide. Rio.
Yeah, so if you joined us at our Rev Up meeting, we were joined by Aubriana Wilson, and Aubriana works at the American Association of People with Disabilities, and she helps different coalitions, Rev Up coalitions, with their engagement and their strategic practices. And something that she brought to us was this specific tool for goal setting practices. So something that I would love for us to discuss tonight is what are our goals for 2026? So Going Home Coalition, as you all know, has existed for several decades, and they have done everything from grassroots protesting to, the Freedom Ride, where they traveled across the state and met with different self-advocates. They typically led a Going Home Coalition rally every year. We participate in workshops and webinars and other educational opportunities. We're always present at transition fairs. We work a lot with legislative proposals. So we support different pieces of legislation, and we encourage our members to submit witness slips and testimonials. So those are all examples of things that we can engage in the coming year. And in order to be successful in achieving our goals, this tool is really helpful to kind of keep us um, on track and to help us create a sort of plan that we're able to follow, a strategy that we're able to follow, so that we're able to not only come up with a goal, but also see it through to completion. So this tool is called Smarty. And it is an acronym, when an acronym is just a word that each letter stands for another word. So, for example, Smarty, the first word is specific. So that means when we are setting a goal, we want it to be specific. We want to know exactly what we're trying to make happen. So, for example, we're going to be working with the Humanizing Long-Term Care campaign, and they're bringing a legislative proposal to the House. And something that we're going to be doing is supporting that. So they have a specific goal of getting a piece of legislation passed. The next word is M, and that is measurable. So that means something that you can basically be able to tell if you achieved your goal, right? So, for example, if we're talking about a legislative proposal, You'll know if you achieve your goal based on whether or not the piece of legislation gets passed or if it gets adopted into different resolutions, etc. Ambitious. We want to set our sights high, right? So we don't want to limit ourselves with what we think that we can achieve. So instead of limiting ourselves to, regional campaigns, maybe we focus on the entire state. Realistic. It's something that we know that we will be able to achieve. It's really important in organizing work to give yourself a goal that you know that you can achieve. That way, you feel empowered to continue the work. It's not a lot of, it doesn't feel great if you set unrealistic goals for yourself and you're unable to succeed at those goals. So you want to find a goal that you know will be achievable, but it's also, it's exciting, it's ambitious, you know that you really want to get engaged with it. Time bound. So instead of saying for the rest of time, this is what we're going to do, we'll say we want our campaign to last for 1 month and it has this goal at the end. And then inclusive. Are we working to include as many different perspectives as possible? Are we ensuring that some folks who aren't typically represented in spaces are having their voices heard? And then equitable. So equitable means that um, giving people opportunities based off of the privileges or marginalizations that they have. So maybe someone has multiple disabilities, but they're white, or maybe someone is Black and doesn't have disabilities. We would address each of those people's identities and allow them to step into space with the resources that they need to feel successful and to be able to participate and have their voice heard. So before I move on, do we have any questions about Smarty, or does it seem pretty straightforward? Great. So just so we get some ideas of things that we might want to get involved with this year. We have in the past done a lot of witness slip campaigns and testimonials in support of legislation. We have some exciting opportunities to submit witness slips and support legislation this coming this legislative session, which just began. We could lead a social media awareness campaign. So last year at SUSO, Jennifer went around and spoke with self-advocates and asked them and their perspective, why do they believe in voting? Why is it important for disabled people to vote? And she used those videos as on social media to help bring awareness to the importance of the disability vote. Something else we could do is create videos or photography. So if you go to the Going Home Coalition website, there is a video right at the beginning that is the case for closure. And that is a great video that talks about the importance of moving away from institutional settings. So we could create something like that. In-person rallies or protests. So as many of you all know, we have the OG Barb in the room, and Barb and Lester were amazing at leading rallies and protests. They were all over the state. They were up in state buildings and making their voices heard. And that's something that we can definitely do this year if you all are interested. Education, that's something that we do pretty often in our meetings where we have some folks come and they join us and they help educate us. But something we can consider is how can we educate people in our community? What skills do we have that we need to share with people? What stories do we have that should be shared with our community and in order to help raise awareness about institutionalization or moving into the community. And then another example is striking. So this is probably not as relevant for us because we are not a workplace. But if in the future we want to partner with a labor organization and we want to, have a strike to shut down an SODC, I think we should go for it. I think that's a great idea. So those are just some examples. And now I'm going to pass things back to April, and she will introduce our discussion.
All right. Does anyone have any ideas they would like to do for the year through the Going Home Coalition? Any ideas? Well, I have one.
Go ahead, April.
I was thinking like maybe to go to the other SODCs to to do a presentation with them, you know, with people that are trying to move to a group home or maybe have concerns to move to a group home,
Totally.
so like or a solo home or the community, and we could tell them our story and how it's been for us.
I love that idea.
Because sometimes when, you think about it, like I know for me, for instance, I was a little nervous, because you always hear, you know, the so-called war stories about group homes and solo homes and stuff like that. But when you hear it from like what it's actually like from people that are actually there, you know, and people that are not just going to tell you what you want to hear, but that can, let them know the ins and outs, and you know, stuff like that, about being in the community and what other options you have, you know, besides being a SODC.
Yeah, I love that idea, April. That's a really great idea. I'm writing that down. Charles?
I was on the more along the lines as what she was saying, but a little bit more into deeper details. Transitioning into Scillas or other locations. I have ran into a few colleagues that I work with who right now are trying to transition from SODC now to
Mm-hmm.
Scilla. Some other agencies. Some other agencies have not been doing so well. The lack of management, the lack of how do I want to say this? The lack of trust isn't there.
Yeah.
So it's harder for the clients to transition and be like, okay, this is safe. Is it safe? Is this going to be safe for me? Are the staff going to be there to do what they're supposed to do? Stuff like that. Um, I had to reinsure one client today that, look at all your resources and all your options before you push that move. Because, like I said, everything that is in black and white is not all what it seems to be. Always do your research before transitioning because, like I said, some people could say the transitioning is going to go smooth and it is like a piece of cake, but then some of them that went through the transition kind of backfired.
Yeah.
So I as an advocate, I would like to help speak up for those who can't speak up and don't understand that.
Totally. These
And
are really
another
great
thing
ideas.
is you can't always take other people's word, because like a lot of people, because I've had incidents when I was at SODC where like, they would try to tell me stuff that wasn't true, you know, so I wouldn't want to go to to a solo home,
Mm-hmm.
so you just can't always take what other people say, like you can't like don't judge something, based off other people. Judge it
Mm-hmm.
for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of people will tell you stuff to bring you down. And I've learned from experience, you know, or, you gotta take in consideration what they say, but be aware that what everybody tells you is not fact.
Totally. So we're thinking some sort of education campaign for folks who are still in SODCs, for folks who are interested in transitioning out of SODCs and into the community about what that process looks like. So first, April talked a little bit about, what it looks like to even have the opportunity to leave, right? Like there's a possibility of not living in an SODC. And then Charles, you were talking about a conversation about what the kind of nitty-gritty of the transition looks like. Because
Mhm.
as you guys know, I mean, obviously it is not just a walk in the park, right? So you still have to navigate getting services, and it is a really different setup than being in an institutional setting. I think those are
And
really
it's not
great
an
ideas.
overnight thing.
Yeah,
It's not going to happen. You know, take your time. People need to take their time and not just jump at the first one they see,
totally.
you
Yeah, I
know,
love this.
because it's like, you get that chance and you're like, I don't know when another chance is going to come, so I'm just going to go.
Totally.
That's not always the best option. Even though you want to get out, you got to make sure that's going to be the place for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And remember to
Jen,
ask questions.
yeah, I love this, guys. This is a really great idea.
And
Jennifer?
you got to make sure it's the best transition for you too, because like I said, not every transition is going to be successful. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have some setbacks. I mean, I've been through some setbacks that
Yeah.
stuff didn't work for me. Another thing that came to my mind today that also somebody brought to my attention, I don't know if this can be irrelevant to it or not, but helping up, speaking up for people who can't speak up when there's an allegation, especially
Mm.
OCDC and transitioning to the group homes. I had somebody last week who tried to report something, and it just, how like if you're supposed to report something, you're supposed to talk to the investigator, but then they
Mm-hmm.
um misconstrued, and it goes up the chain to the people that's not supposed to go to. So
Really.
how do I want to put it? More to say, if you make an OIG investigation and you're only supposed to talk to the investigator, but upper management gets involved and starts
Yeah.
so I feel like client safety is at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important for us to be talking to folks about what their rights are, that they have a right to not be retaliated against. And
Right.
I think that is information that folks who are in ICFs and SODCs, and even folks who are in larger SILA
Mm-hmm.
placements, they really need to understand that they have the right to share their stories and not be retaliated against for it. So I love that idea. I want to pass to Jennifer because I feel like she had a response to what you guys were saying.
I loved what both of you were sharing, April and Charles. First of all, when you said it doesn't always work out, right? I moved out of my parents' home and then I rebounded and moved back into my parents' home because just change of directions and some things like that. And so I think that's an important thing to remember is like sometimes there's setbacks or things aren't working out right, but it doesn't mean that it won't work next time or failure. So that was a good reminder for me that it's very similar in that it's not like a try it once and that's your only shot. So thanks for sharing that. I also just I won't ask them now, but I have suddenly had a ton of questions because I haven't had this experience, and I think it would be good for me and a lot of other people to understand what it's like. Like I would love to hear more about April, your experience or different people's experience to know, what were you looking forward to? What were you afraid of? What challenges did you run into? How did you overcome them? I think that would be really great for a lot of people, both who want to transition and people who don't have experience to know so we know how to support with our legislators and things. But so thanks for sharing that. I also wonder like what resources that you had. You mentioned like did you have resources to know what it was like, or was it only word of mouth, April? I don't know that
Well,
you would
at first,
answer all those now, but those are things I'd love for you to
yeah,
share in different ways.
yeah. I've had, this transition was this is the best I've ever done, you know, ever, you know, and I've So it's like, and I think it's because of the resources I have now, through the Arc of Illinois and the Going Home Coalition and everything like that, because I have the more of the support, I have the support through my staff and stuff, but I have the other people that can, you know, help me. And I think that's another thing that when people are looking into, you know, community living, like what other resources are there besides the place you're at?
Hmm.
So you can have somebody to ask, if you're unsure, you know, is what I'm being told right? You know, and I think because
That makes a
sometimes,
lot of sense.
people will try to pull over on you, you know, like tell you something and you think it's the truth because they're telling it to you, but it's not always that way.
Thanks for sharing your perspectives, guys. It's really important. And I think this is um, a really great idea for what we get into this year. I think this is one of, yeah, I love this idea of especially getting into SODCs. That's something that some folks at Equip for Equality were talking to Jennifer and I about is like, how can we get into the SODCs and help develop self-advocates who are already there? So I know, April, you're still connected to folks at Shapiro. So I feel like if we do it that way, where we connect with individuals and we say, hey, we really want to hear from you and your perspective and what you're experiencing while you're still institutionalized and what your goals are and how can we help support that journey.
And
I
I
think
know
that could
when
be a great opportunity for connection for all of us.
and I got connected with the Arc of Illinois with Greg and them when I was at Shapiro.
Amazing. Did you
You
go to
know,
one of the transition fairs?
huh?
Did you meet them at a transition fair?
No. Actually, I had um they had um got like with the Operation Welcome Home webinars.
Cool.
I got involved with those, and that's how I became, got involved with Greg and the
Hmm.
Arc of Illinois and the Going Home Coalition and stuff.
Amazing. I love to know that our folks are reaching y'all. That's good to know. And I think
And that's the
we
thing,
can
like,
increase that.
yeah, so like, there's ways like, you know, because I know they got iPads at Shapiro or some of the centers now,
Okay.
so that's another option, so like, some of them maybe could link on, and some of them do
Hmm.
have their devices and stuff, so maybe it might be helpful, like, we get people in the community with the Going Home Coalition, you know, but there might be some people there at the SODCs that might be interested also.
I would love that. And I think that should be like a huge priority for us is connecting to folks who are, still living in the institutions. I think that's really, really important work. Well, Jennifer brought up a couple suggestions. She sent me some messages. She said, what about a mini documentary about people who have or are in process of transitioning? And then she also brought up a panel discussion at the next SUSO convention, which I think both of those are interesting ideas. Is anyone else, what do we think of these ideas?
I like that. I've never been to a Speak Up, Speak Out,
Oh, well,
so
you
that's something
definitely
that
have
I
to go
really
this
want to
year.
do.
Yeah, we definitely have to get you to participate somehow this year.
I only went to one speak out and speak no speak up and speak out, but that was like some years ago.
Nice. Yeah, you guys both need to come this year.
We did
I've
that.
done the virtual.
We did.
Yeah.
We did that. Um, Governor Quinn was governor at the time, and he ended up doing shutting some facilities down. I was also involved with the protesting at the Springfield Capitol.
Oh, amazing.
We did a speak up, speak out at the Capitol as they were doing the process of. We were trying to save JDC when they were opening, and that's when we fought a good fight. It still wasn't enough to keep it open budget wise. A lot of families and a lot of clients either had to be forced to go back home with family, or it was an emergency to other SODCs or group homes.
Hmm.
A lot of them were transferred to, I want to say, Schultz. I want to say Schultz and Shapiro.
Probably. Yeah.
So yeah,
Thanks for sharing that and for being part of that work.
you're
That's really,
welcome.
really important. Let's see. Does anyone else have any suggestions for what we could do this year? Let's see. I was hearing circles of support are needed by April. Maybe some education about that idea in the other education. April said this is a while ago. I am multitasking. This is from Amber. So, some education for folks who are disabled and for family members, maybe regarding like what does a circle of support look like for someone with disabilities? How can we be like successful community members? I think that is a really awesome idea, and I think that's a webinar that could be led exclusively by self-advocates for sure. I see Barb has a hand up. Barb, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. And I love all the ideas people are coming up with. Um, a couple of thoughts. I know someone who's not here today, and I'm going to connect with him. He did a project for the Larry Biondi Fellowship, and his emphasis was to go to state developmental centers and talk to residents about transitioning. So I'm going to see if he would be in, and he's usually at these meetings. So I
Amazing.
want to see if he's interested in putting some of his expertise maybe with you guys on that particular
Yeah.
project. Also on a total switch, but um, something else that I think legislators, when you were talking about um, legislation that we want to educate ourselves on and educate legislators on, I think whatever we choose, and it could be multiple things, it could be a bill, and it could also be educating legislators that people want to get out of the SODCs. I think one thing that I've heard people, legislators and their staff monitor is Facebook.
Hmm.
So I think posting some things on Facebook and educating legislators that way is, and as well as like through the mail and calls to their office, visits to their office, things like that could be helpful because then they're going to hear from people that have survived the SODCs, or maybe I worry about people in the SODCs speaking out because they might get
Hmm.
retaliated against. So
Hmm.
I'm cautious about that. But if people who have been in an SODC and speak out, then they've got the legislators have it from a good source, somebody that's lived there. It's not just staff. And I'm not throwing staff under the bus, but sometimes staff don't want to see closure because it's their jobs and they
Absolutely.
don't want to lose their jobs. I don't believe that staff people should be employed on the backs of other people that don't want to be there.
Absolutely.
So, but I think getting the message to legislators might be helpful for getting them to begin to think about closure. Because in the over 20 years I've done this work, the biggest pushback we have is from um, the unions
Hmm.
because they don't want to see the closure. And there's unions that work in the SODCs, and there's a different union that works in the community. So I think the
Mhm.
more we can do to educate the legislators that this is a real issue that people want, I think, looking at different ways we can educate them would be really helpful.
Absolutely. That's great ideas and great grounding. I definitely think that we need to be meeting with legislators, and I think, especially since the session has already started, it's something that we should be prioritizing. So if you are on this call and you are interested in meeting with a legislator, talking to them about your experience as a person with disabilities or a person who has lived in an institution, why don't you just go ahead and drop an emoji or something in the chat? That way I know to reach out to you and we can start to think, we can start to brainstorm together which representatives might be good folks to reach out to. Jennifer?
Question for Barb or anybody else that might know this answer. I'm curious, so many other states have closed SODCs entirely or mostly. Have we, like, are you aware, have we done any studies on how they handled the union issues? Because I can't imagine we'd be the first state to face that. Like, did any of them have particularly good strategies or strategies that might align with what we face here?
That's a really good question, and I don't know that I have a great answer, but I know that, for example, Michigan, they their closures occurred from parents um, of parents of people in SODCs and outside of pushing for closure, and also um, having lawsuits. And we've done both, and
Mm-hmm.
we haven't seemed to crack the political will in Illinois, in my opinion,
Yeah.
to to um, to force closure. But and on the other hand, and I really do believe this, I don't know that we have the infrastructure to absorb a lot of people into the community because I know, um, and if I'm wrong, you know if somebody else has another opinion and I'm wrong, I will take that. But I know there are many providers that are having trouble finding staff. Community providers are having trouble finding staff and, are cautious about taking people out of state operated facilities. So I want to be sure we have the infrastructure in places for people to move to, as well as seeing things closed. It's kind of a balancing act, and we need both halves. And I don't really know, Jennifer, how to really answer your question. It's been it stumped me for over 20 years, and if I know we've looked at other states similar to Illinois and different from Illinois, and in my mind, we just haven't had the political will. Even Pritzker hasn't really wanted to address it, and I don't know if that's because he doesn't want to lose his base of union workers, and that's an issue, and he just wants to stay clear of that. I'm not sure, but we didn't have that. We definitely didn't have any support for closure in Rauner. We did under Ryan. That's been in my time, that's been the governor that did the most for closure. And his feeling was he felt it was a sin to have people locked up, basically. So I wish I had better information. I don't know that Illinois has done different groups in Illinois have done different surveys, but I don't know if all of that has been applied um, in a way that will push the legislator and the government toward closure. Um, and Caitlin, if you have any other thoughts,
Yeah, I
you
was
can
about to
jump in as
say,
well.
Dr. Crab, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, this is Caitlin. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I don't know of any studies that have specifically looked at the union issue. I think that, Barb, you might have been referencing a study that compared Michigan and Illinois, their deinstitutionalization efforts. But I don't
Yes.
know that if anything that's looked specifically at unions. I can do a little bit of searching, but I don't know.
Thank you, Barb. Both of you, I appreciate that. My dad was a union guy. Like that was the environment I was raised in, but I wholeheartedly agree with what you said, Barb. Like there's a place for unions, but not at the expense of people in the living conditions they're in. So, and I really appreciate your point about that not having the infrastructure in the communities. I think that's huge. And I appreciate that you brought that up because that's got to be addressed so that there's what people need. So anyway, thank you for that perspective. It's something I'm going to start poking around with as well, just to see what other states have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually an opportunity that Jennifer and I have been talking about, and someone brought up, I think in the November Going Home Coalition meeting, is this idea that because Illinois is so regressive when it comes to institutionalization, it's often hard for us to imagine what the possibilities are in other states and how other states are handling the problem of transition, or not the problem, but the opportunity for folks to transition. So I'm curious if folks here are interested in maybe finding ways to reach out to leaders in other states who are experienced with the move towards deinstitutionalization, and having them come and join us and learn more about what is going on in other states and how they've been successful in transitioning folks. Is that something you guys would be interested in learning about?
Yes.
Mrs. Barb and I
Um,
would very much be interested in that.
Awesome.
I know like a lot of times with people with medical um issues, like they get denied solo homes because like at some homes or some agencies, like if you're diabetic and you got to have insulin, you can't be in there because they don't have nurses to come to the house. What some agencies do, but not all of them. So it's like, or if you have certain conditions that need more hands-on, a lot of times you get denied placement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
And I
think that,
don't think
oh,
that's fair. I don't think that's fair because to me, that's kind of discriminating against people that have something that they're not able to control.
yeah.
So it's like, if I feel like, like you should be able to live in the community in a solo home, you know, even if you have medical conditions that may require some extra care, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that goes
they,
back to, sorry, go ahead, April.
because I know like, like some people like they just don't have like you know, the training or the staff, or the nurses to always come around. Well, I mean, people can, there has to be some way that Illinois can do that, either pair or partner with an agency or with um in-home nurse in-home to come to the home to do the stuff that needs to be done,
Mhm.
you know, but they're just, it's just not fair that, people get denied because they might have an insulin pump or, whatever issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that goes back to, I think, Barb's point of just the discussion of increasing community capacity and ability to provide services for folks who have more higher support needs or who are medically complex. I think that's a great point, April. Charles?
I also wanted to bring up a little bit touched with what she said. Um, Another thing that has been bothering a couple people that I've seen in some SODCs and some other group homes, we have a few clients that I have spoke to recently about a couple weeks ago, where they're trying to transition from SODC to community placement. But a problem that they're having, and I'm trying to get with my legislature. I think I said it right. Person that is in Kankakee County. I'm trying to get with them to see if they can get with the SODC to see if they can do things a little bit more better. Because, like I said, some people are transitioning from SODC and then they get put into a placement of transition to the
Hmm.
home, and more less to say, the issue is, oh, we can't accept you because you're not high functioning enough, or this is not the criteria for your level. Stuff like that has been happening lately. In my opinion, it shouldn't matter if you're high functioning or not. Um, More to see if the home is your fit, more to say so. My thing of my experience being in ASILA and doing the transitionings multiple times, it shouldn't matter if if it's high functioning, low functioning, mid functioning. As long as you transition the way you need to transition and you do it about the right way and you're doing good, it shouldn't matter the functioning level. To me, I mean,
Yeah.
everybody's different. Um, but that has been a struggle with several clients to where they denied them. Another issue that they're having right now is funding issues. You go through the process of transitioning from SODC, transferring to a group home, and they're being denied that they can't go to no Scylla home because of funding. That is
Hmm.
the problem that Illinois is having with the state facilities and the state operated homes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an excellent point. And this actually is a perfect transition because I want, if Barb, you're up for it, do you mind just talking a tiny bit about the Humanizing Long-Term Care campaign for folks who aren't aware about it?
Sure. It deals with a slightly different population than we've been talking about tonight, but the Humanized Long-Term Care Coalition is campaign is um, we're working with people who are in nursing homes, and in a way, I see a lot of similarities between nursing homes and state-operated developmental centers. You can't. I mean, it is your home. You don't have a choice of living somewhere else. And in many cases, people can't just get out and go somewhere else. And oftentimes in nursing homes, people are retaliated against if the person wants to see their own doctor. Um, Maybe they're asking to see their own doctor, and they're told no, they get to see the nursing home doctor, or they're asking to go out and be outside for a while. If the nurses are busy, they might just give somebody a shot and the person will sleep the rest of the afternoon. So they don't get to go out because they fell asleep because of a shot. So we worked last year and we got a bill passed for not retaliating against people with disabilities, and we're trying to get the parts of that bill in place so that we can implement it. So we are working on that. But in addition, this some of the same sponsors are wanting to work with us on this year on looking at seeing if we can. And I'm going to get the name of this wrong, but there's a small tax that everybody pays when they sell a house. It's not property tax, but it's a bit.
Real estate transfer tax.
Thank you, Rio. I knew you
Yes.
had that. The real estate transfer tax. We're trying to get them to increase that to maybe be 25 cents for every dollar that you spend, and some of that money then go into a fund to support uh, people's rent when they move out of a nursing home, because you only get $60 a month in a nursing home, and that's not going to help you pay for a down pay or a security deposit or first and last month's rent. So, and this would be ongoing rent. We're asking for about $40,000. We don't know if that piece of legislation will actually even get called because um, there's a couple people in the legislature that don't want to see that tax go up at all. So, and we're going to get a lot of pushback, but we're hoping to get a hearing on that. There might be another bill, well, a subject matter hearing on the first one, the real estate transfer tax. And then we also will probably introduce a bill, and that would be through Anna Muller, who's a representative, to have a fund that would go to the Department of Human Services, and that money could be used to help people move out of nursing homes. We're not sure how specific we can get with that particular bill. That would be a revenue-based bill. So, and Anna Muller said she's never had a revenue bill pass that she's introduced. So we're hopeful we can make some movement. We're not sure how far we'll get on this campaign, but we feel like people who are moving out of nursing homes or need to move out, one of their stomach blocks is having the money to be able to move out and then be able, going forward, to pay for rent and security and deposit, not only in the initial stuff, but ongoing rent.
Thank you so much, Barb. Yeah, that's great.
Is that enough background? Okay.
Yeah, that's perfect. And yeah, I just wanted to bring this information to you guys because the Humanizing Long-Term Care campaign has asked for the support of the Going Home Coalition as they're pushing for this piece of legislation. So just sound off in the chat or raise your hand or give a thumbs up if you feel confident in supporting the Humanizing Long-Term Care campaign in their effort to create a transitional fund for folks to transition from ICFs, nursing homes to into the community. Awesome. It looks like we are kind of all in agreement that this is really important work, and I think it relates directly to folks who are living in SODCs. I think that the experiences between folks who are, like Barb said, who are kind of forced to live in SODCs is really similar to the experiences of disabled and elderly folks who are forced to live in nursing homes. And so when we are talking about transition and we're talking about the move away from institutionalization, I think it's really important that we're not just looking at our personal community, that we're not just looking at the IDD space, but we're also looking at everyone who is someone who is marginalized or disabled, who is being affected by a system that is similar, that is putting people in places where they don't want to live, where they're not choosing which services or which housing they have access to. So I am very thankful, Barb, that you brought that up and that you were willing to share a little bit about it. And as soon as we get more information, you guys, we will share that out with you. And as soon as there's an opportunity, if there is an opportunity to submit witness slips, we'll be kind of tapping into you guys to act as support for that. This has been an amazing conversation, and I really don't want to stop things, but it is 6:57. So I want to pass things back to April so we can talk a little bit about what we have coming up and then let you guys go and enjoy. It just started snowing here in Chicago, so you can get bundled up and have some hot cocoa, maybe.
All right. We'd like you to.
Oh, sorry, hold on.
All right, join our coalition. We are looking for advocates and organizations who would like to join our coalition in a more formal role to help guide our work and organize with us. Next slide. We are looking for people to join us. If you are not a member or you know someone who would like to become a member, you can fill out this form by scanning the QR code. Next slide. Upcoming meetings are Rev Up Illinois Strategy Meeting, February 4th from 6 to 7. Going Home Coalition, learning more about the IDD system, Redesigning Coalition, February 18th from 6 to 7. Next slide. The Legislative Advocacy Series at 10 a.m. includes on January 26th, informed citizenship. Then we have looking up your legislator in current legislations, February 2nd. How to submit a witness slip, February 9th. Crafting an elevator speech, February 17th. Arranging a meeting with your legislator, February 23rd. Discussing political issues with civility, March 2nd. And how a bill becomes a law in the federal and state levels on March 9th. Next slide. Thank you for coming.
Thank you everyone for joining us. As we said before, I will be sending out the meeting notes and the recording. So feel free to share the recording. It's going to be a public YouTube link. So anyone who you think might be interested in the discussion, definitely send it their way. Thank you so much for joining us.
Great meeting.